Hi, it's Will from Chewing the Channel. Really excited to be introducing our first podcast episode with the legend that is Jonny Rae. Seen a lot of podcasts out there. I'm sure we all have. For me, really excited to be able to authentically host Chewing the Channel, where no topic is off limits, authenticity is a must, and where we can really find out some interesting things about our guests, the industry, and hopefully learn a few things. I know I'm going to be hopefully educating myself significantly during these series. I'm really excited to move from poacher to gamekeeper with Jonny Rae, who you may be aware of through Fibrenews. You may have actually bought some shoes from him in the past in Peckham Market, but we'll kind of cover that in a little bit. But really excited to really get an understanding of Jonny, his career, and what's led him to this point. Hello, Mr. Rae. How are you doing?
I'm very good. This is weird.
How does it feel?
Pressured. It's weird being on the other side.
That's interesting. Is this going to give you a newfound appreciation for your guests?
100%. I think I need to calm them down more and get them half cut before we do any.
So you're really different. Do you think Jeremy Paxton should have done this back in the day? Maybe help him with empathy.
Who's Jeremy Paxton?
Jeremy Paxman.
Nah, go on.
Newsnight.
Newsnight.
Yeah.
Big age gift difference, don't forget. I'm still young, although I look well old.
I tell you what, you know how to flatter me, so we're going to have to get into some serious questions then. So you're our first guest for
Thank you very
Chewing
much
the Channel.
Yeah.
Interesting story before we kind of get into it. How did you get down to Manchester? Because obviously I drove down to Exeter for your office, and there was some comments about services and my food, both choices, etc. So how did you travel down? I'm assuming you got the train and stayed in the hotel.
It would make sense. So I actually came up Sunday night and got my head down in my van.
You slept in your van?
I slept in my van. But I am a advocate for getting well. I actually sleep better if I'm in a van than I do in a hotel. And that's because many moons ago, I was a market trader. And I used to do...
Definitely going to touch on that.
We can touch on that. I used to do probably 5 nights a week getting my head down in my van. So it's become like the most...
So how does that work then? You go to your stall and you park up.
You want to go into the market trade a bit?
I'm trying to understand this sleeping in a van thing. We can get onto the market trading.
So normally, depending on what market you're going to do, or it sometimes be abroad. So we used to go and buy in like France or Holland. So
how do you when you're doing
Germany.
This?
So I started out just doing UK based when I was about 16.
Because you look in your 40s, but you actually...
I look in my 40s, but I'm 31.
31.
I've had a hardcore paper round.
So 16 years ago.
Yeah.
16.
So left school.
No college.
Well, so I started doing it when I was in school and then started bidding off the back end of it. And then after school, went in to be a market trader. Yeah, but that's where I first got into sales, technically.
What got you into that? Is it a lot of your friends maybe going to college or whatever, and you've got a bit of cash doing things?
Bang on, yeah, I love the cash. So it was one summer. It was the summer holidays when I was 16. I got an opportunity to go and work on a burger van at all the festivals through the summer. And then quickly grew up to be a man. And after that, there was a chap I met on there and was like, do you want to come to the market with me after? I was like, yeah, sound.
Are we talking kind of Only Fools and Horses?
Yeah, proper. So he started off. So our main game was all the returns from Sports World. So when Sports World got returns, they would get millions a bloody month because of how many shops there were. Not going to do it was sport and soccer then. And then they would go to one guy over in Leighton Buzzard in Hertfordshire, and we'd buy all the stuff that he couldn't sell, basically. And there's a few stories. One story is, when you go into sport and soccer and you've got all one trainers on the wall. Yeah. Obviously, they lose the other trainer, right? So then you end up with tens of thousands of odd trainers.
Left foot, right foot, all the...
Yeah, bang on. So there's all odds everywhere, not in a box. And they would all come in big square pallets, go to the chap I used to buy them off. He'd pair them up, sell them as brand new, but no box in his shop. I'd buy all the ones that you couldn't pair up. You smash them out of tenner.
So it's very much Delboy sort of, you've got your suitcase with your...
Bang on, but it was a van, yeah, and you'd pack up and then trying to get out of a market on a busy Saturday early. It was a challenge, mate. We still saw.
So it's interesting because when I look at your career, you obviously have the persona, the LinkedIn stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have the market trading side of things.
You can't really put that on your LinkedIn experience.
No,
you know what I mean?
it'd be interesting how you would do that. I mean, yeah, for legal reasons, you probably couldn't. But what I think is interesting with you, and what I want to kind of touch on is kind of from that 15, 16, the entrepreneurial seed is sown, where you're able to kind of navigate, generate cash, but you dance to your own clock. What prompted the move then? I'm possibly maybe legal reasons for this, but what prompted the move from kind of the entrepreneurial sort of market trading to looking at, I mean, I could say the name Blizzard, and kind of beginning your tech journey? Was it what prompted that move? Why the two? Because they're quite different.
You're absolutely
There's
right.
sales element in it, but they're very different in terms of.
There's 2 points there then. So the first point is the sales element. So being a market trader taught me an incredible amount, made my skin incredibly thick when it came to a sales role.
Plus, if you're not selling,
you're not making any
money.
And you had to bring people in. We were always the busiest on the market because I was on top of the van and we were shouting out. And then when it came to the end of the day and there was nothing left, I was on top and screaming £1, anything you like £1. And we'd always have these rhymes and we'd be shouting out, attracting people in. If you've got a busy market still, then you're busy. So that kind of taught me, you've got to be loud, that's marketing, right? You've got to tell people what you got. And then, I used to do door to door as a market salesman, and we'd go around 5 nights before knocking on doors and say there's a pack of rockets there at a tenner, normally 30 quid in the shop, and you'd have it off. So that was door to door sales. And I didn't realize it was actually teaching me a sales career. I was just getting a thick skin from all of this hardcore graft, really. And then that's the sales aspect. Why I started at Blizzard is I was getting into too much trouble. And then my old man was like, you got no chance you're carrying
this. You need a career.
You want to stay in my house. I'm getting common because I'm talking about the market. You want to stay in my house, you need a job. And then there's a chap called Mark Jones who owns Blizzard still to this day. He's been in telecoms his whole career. He had a big company called Symphony Telecom back in the day that sold, and it was all about it. He had started another company up again called Blizzard, and I knew him through a friend. He used to go around a friend's house and he'd be drinking there with his dad. And then he took a shot at me. He's like, I'm gonna give you a job. And I was like, that's a touch.
I'm going to polish Jonny Rae.
About to get a backhander from the old man. So I said, yeah, please do. And I remember rocking up for an interview. I had no idea what that was. Rocked up in a pair of t-shirts and jeans. And he took me for a little chat and I was answering all the questions wrong. It was going horrendous, but he still gave me a job and he took me on.
Why do you think that was? What drink you saw?
That's a really good question, mate. I don't know. I think I was chatty when I was around there and I thought he probably thought I had the gift of the gab. Can I mould that gift of the gab into something professional? And that for him was actually a much bigger challenge than he ever thought. For the first year or whatever it was, like, bless him, he put me through every area in that business to get me to learn. Like the first role I had, he put me in mobile trying to help a chap, then he put me in support. Like it took me a long time to get to actually sales because he realised he tried to put me in sales straight away. And I was a nightmare. And I didn't know a professional office way.
Oh, I got some mobile phones for you. Come and get your mobile phones.
Going out for a fag every bloody 30 minutes. And he was like, it's just winding everyone up like me, like an office environment.
But he stuck with it. A lot of businesses, interesting. And stuff.
He stuck with me.
A lot would have.
Yeah, he told me loads of times, like, I should have sacked you. I can't believe I'm doing this. But like, he was top man. Took me right to an absolute reprobate. Still was a little bit by the end, but then I became like his right hand man to a degree. It was good, helped him.
And you worked every level within there.
Yeah, and then became sales and became a major account manager. I think is what it says on LinkedIn. But we done some good work when lease lines started getting popular. Blizzard has a model where they're like the old school 50-50 reseller model. So they'll take someone who does PBXs back in the day. The
name's been stolen, unfortunately, by reprobates, but in my language, that's kind of a dealer where you do like a split. They're not contracted.
Yeah. They bill it in your brand and they take 50%. And when I started getting to the sales side is when Ethernet started kicking off, lease lines. And
what sort of time was this?
No idea, on terrible dates, man. Well,
I've probably been working a long time now, won't I? That's for sure.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. But, it was, I can't remember when it was, man. But
2014, 15, 16.
Yeah, bang on. Yeah, about that. When it started getting popular and there was strong money in it. Even though the cost price was still mega high, you could easily chuck your 100, 150, 200 quid a month. To the dealers.
How many suppliers would there have been then? So less than 10 years ago. It
actually started kicking off for me. Instead of going direct, because we didn't understand the product. Do you know what I mean? Like lines and calls, WR3, that was our bread and butter, and using a bit of broadband, whatever it was then. Single line with a FTTC was quite even new, and it was just your ADSL. So Ethernet was quite new. So then I actually used Daisy back in the day because they were the kind of first ones to have that panel of suppliers.
Other wholesalers are available.
Other wholesalers are available. Technically used the name Daisy there and not one of their most recent names on purpose.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah.
And there was a chap called John Child, actually, incredible account manager, and he kind of helped me with it. We won a really good campaign and we ended up doing tons of this Ethernet connectivity, really pushed it. And we built up an incredible base from it. And yeah, that was my time at Blizzard.
When you were looking at Ethernet, because it's interesting because there's a lot of businesses who will focus in certain areas. So voice being a primary one or IT support and connectivity is kind of something that they're pushed into because if they're not talking about it, someone else is and all that kind of stuff. How was that journey from moving into Ethernet? Because most people, was it the technology that excited you or was it the
cash,
the margin,
the cash
that you could sell?
100%. So for me, it was the cash because I knew I was getting a commission from it. To the dealer, it was cash, you know, trying to say to them, all right, you just gone and sold a 10 grand PBX. But how nice is it to have a couple of £100 coming in a month as well? It's only going to take you 10 of those and you've got 2 grand, which that was a lot more money.
Recurring revenue for...
Bang on. Absolutely. So it was the cash that really incentivized it. And really, it's not as complex as you like. So back then, some of them dealers, you know, were PBX only, even WR3 was a bit complicated. And you're trying to say to them, you've got to put a chunky Ethernet connection into a property. And then what equipment goes in end of it? Well, I ain't really got a clue, but speak to an IT person and they will. So it was a bit scary, but then you tell them that the margin that was in it. And then, you know, that was at the time that Ethernet kind of dropped as well. Like getting 100 over 100 for 150 quid or 200. They were like, what? I was like, yeah, it's that low now. So it was that. It was a mix of things, the cash available really. And of course, they're 36-month contracts. Right, customers would then becoming common to 36
value
months.
Creation in a business.
Damn right, absolutely.
As a product, it's up there,
100%.
isn't it?
They don't go down. You ain't got to worry about it. You're telling the dealer, by the way, it's also not going to drop. And by the way, we are trying to sell VoIP at the minute, but it's a bit finicky because it's when it started coming out. But you put a lease line in, you're laughing. It's going to solve all your problems.
So
it was meant.
Kind of that journey, see, market.
Yeah.
Bloke takes a chance on you.
Legendary bloke, Mark
Legendary
Jones.
bloke. Experience all the different elements. You have some of the more roguish elements chipped off you as you refined.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming, kind of knowing you, that hunger, determination, wanting to generate cash,
you got
that drove you through.
You got
How did you cope with working for someone for so long in terms of that organisation? Yeah, you had the freedom, but it wasn't jumping in a van doing this, sleeping in a van doing these things.
Correct.
How did Jonny Rae cope with that period?
So I came for a long time, for like 6 years, and it's because of Mark Jones, really, what he was teaching me. And I saw the opportunity that I could actually like get into a professional space and start to understand tech and technology, and knew that was probably going to be more ideal. But it doesn't actually shout on my LinkedIn. But I did get itchy feet again after the 6 year period. And I was like, I'm going out on my own. I've always obviously had that in my head. And I did go out on my own. I tried to do a bit of telecoms on my own. And that didn't really work. So then actually I found myself drawing back into market trading. So it doesn't actually show on LinkedIn. There is a bit of a gap where I went to try and put it on my own, didn't put it out there. And then I went back into market trading, but this time I went into furniture, traveling around Europe, buying it and bringing it back to the UK. And I probably would have stuck at that, but my missus got pregnant and I was like, shit, I don't know if I should swear. Beep. I was like, I can't be going away 4 nights a week, sleeping in a van, going to Europe.
And is that kind of, you go to, because I've seen some of these programs, you're like, jump in a van, Calais,
I'm on a Channel 4 program.
France. Yeah, I can imagine. I think before we kind of close the market trading, I think Mark Jones, isn't it? I think it's worthwhile if there are any kind of entrepreneurs or business owners in our sector, that they take note in terms of the work that's done with you, because potentially without a mentor support,
100%.
Let's be honest, you could have been on a few of the programs that would be great. But by persevering with you because of the core characteristics, I think if you put you in a corporate world, you're gone within 3 months. And I think in terms of our sector, with the partners, etc., one of the biggest challenges sometimes can be recruitment. But I think investing in someone that you see some characteristics can pay off. So I mean, if you look at Mark, he's got 6 years of great performance out of you, and he's got an advocate for forever. So I think if anyone's looking at
Absolutely
that,
right.
it's something to.
I think
to
mentorship is
do.
incredibly important. Yeah. I think I was lucky. Not everyone gets it. If you get the opportunity to do it, then and you're right, it does work both ways.
Yeah, I agree. And so you went selling furniture.
Yeah.
You had the delightful news that the Rae household
nerve-wracking
was going to increase.
Yeah, got pregnant, realised I could not be away 4 or 5 nights.
And where are you living then? Are you down south then?
I'm down south. I'm still in Hemel Hempstead. So I was in Hemel then, and then found out I was having a baby, and I was like, why don't you go get a proper job? And then I'd done anything, so I just got out of market trade. I was like, I'll just go and graft, do whatever. For the first couple of months, I was like, I went to an agency. I was like, you got any work? I was like, you can go and deliver parcels. I was like, yeah, sound, do that. So I was delivering parcels, and it was carnage.
You're before your time now. If you were doing that now, you'd be away, wouldn't you?
I love it.
You had to sleep in the van on the way back as well.
My dream. I just wanted to be back in a van. So I was in a van anyway, and I was delivering. And I'd done that far too long, so I wasn't grafting enough to put some work out. And then, I didn't think I had the skill set to go back into telecoms. Bear in mind, I've been marketing trading for a couple of years, and I was delivering part, and I think I had a month left.
Let's just touch on that, because it's interesting. As outwardly, and this is often the case with people, outwardly, all right, geezer, very entrepreneurial. What was holding you to go back? Kind of, when you said that, I didn't think I was able to. That's not really a saying that people would put with Jonny Rae.
Bang on. Everyone has it, that massive self-doubt, like, can you do it? Or can you, 100%. And I had it more than anything. And I didn't think I could go back into a professional and actually make an effort. And of course, with anything, you're scared, can you actually pick up the phone again? And can you do it all? Will you be able to learn the technology? It's all changed in that last time. So 100%, loads of self-doubt. And you just got to grizz it through and crack on. So I did. So 1 month before the baby was born, there's a chap he actually cold called me, because on my LinkedIn it still said I was doing a bit of telecoms, and he was like, do you want to come be a dealer through me? And really, I was at that point, I was literally about to deliver a parcel, and I was like, oh no, not really at the moment, mate. I'm pretty good and all that. And then he was like, I was like, I think I said I might be looking for some work, and he was like, Union Street Technologies are hiring. And I was like, billion. I'm like, got no job. But I was 1 month out, and I was like, I need to interview it. And it was Jonathan, what is his second name? Because I always called him Sheds. But Sheds, people know who he is. The Scouser that sells a load of connectivity. Sheridan. Jonathan Sheridan, the legend. So he actually cold called me, and then said Union Street are hiring. He knew Vincent really well. And like 2 days later, I was in Richmond interviewing in my Tesco bought suit. Do you know what I mean? Like, rocked up in his thing, and then again he took a like to me. I was like, yeah, I want to give you a job, new business. And then that's when I entered Union Street, and then found the love for picking up the phone again.
It's interesting though. Yeah, sorry, go on. Sorry.
There you go.
Well, I don't believe in coincidences. Yeah. So there's now a second key person in your career as you progress it, and for some reason they took me liking to me and all this. They're seeing something entrepreneurial that can be refined each time. It's interesting how it's twice, both times. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And I definitely would have blagged it a little bit as well. And that I wouldn't have told him I was delivering parcels for the last year.
Union Street selling billing software and things like that.
Yeah. So that.
And is that just your cold calling businesses?
Yeah. So when I say I smashed it, I don't mean I smashed it in terms of done good numbers. I did have a good time there sales wise, because I got to pick up the phone again, and the Union Street always kind of sold. They had a great brand, and they were the go-to name within billing. And it was quite easy to pick up the phone. People would know who you are. So it got a good opportunity, but I smashed it in terms of I got to build my network amazingly, because I was on the road 5 days a week. They gave me a Whitbread card, which means I can get a Premier in, but hopefully now, Tony's not listening to this, but you can obviously put booze on there as well in your food, and any Whitbread establishment, like a Beefeater or anything like that. Bear in mind, I'm out 5 days a week, put on like 5 stain. I'd do a meet.
I must have 4 Whitbread cards anyway, carry on.
But I was obviously going out, driving 5 days a week, doing my meetings in a day, and I'd stay in a Whitbread, and then I'd always put through double pints, double meals, as if I was with someone. And then I'll be hammering the Whitbread card all night. So I'll be hammering every night. It's terrible. This is not what you should do, obviously. But then I had a great time there for 2 years. And I built my network incredibly, because you think you're out 5 days a week meeting people. They want to talk to you about billing. And I came into them to talk about the billing came at the end. I'll talk about telecoms, my experience of billing, maybe give them some advice about, actually, you should be buying from here, there, and everywhere. And then, and done really well. I managed to meet so many people within the industry, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it to bits. And big up Vincent Disner, the man who goes in a sunbed at least every 4 hours. He was another good chap.
He's an incredibly well dressed guy, isn't he?
Incredibly well dressed.
So in terms of that network side of things, I'm an advocate of that in terms of the interesting thing for me, and it seems like it's similar to you when you're meeting businesses, is understanding not just trying to sell a product, what do they do, how do they grow? There's politics within that business, there's different structures, and trying 100%. To support them. Did that kind of impart your kind of previous journey of doing sales, doing marketing, then learning tech products? Did that kind of enable you to have more of a breadth of a conversation with a partner, as opposed to if you'd gone 100%. Into Union Street straight from school and that's what you were selling?
100%. So the way I always kind of sold was, I'm not a good salesperson by any means. I'm terrible when it comes to any structured sales process. For me, the way I sold there was building rapport, because talking about stuff within the industry, billing kind of came at the end. There was some structure, because then I do a demo, so you are slightly polished, and they're not just think you're a jack the lad coming in.
When you say structure, do you mean
there was no 12-step, do this, all these acronyms.
No spin selling, no.
No, I didn't have that.
Miller Heimet.
No, I didn't have that. I made loads of friends that I'm still friends with now that I'd met within the industry.
Relationship selling.
Yeah, 100%. And then, it helped that I had a great product. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying to people out there who are trying to sell, mobile, which is the most unsexy product, go in, do you want 10 minutes off your airtime? Well, don't do minutes anymore. Do you want a pound off? Like that? That's hard, right? And if you're, it helped that I had a good product, 100%. But the rapport building was key for me, and met loads of good people. And
what's the best way to establish rapport quickly?
Be yourself. How cheesy is that? Don't be yourself. Talk normally. Talk about things. Don't try and pretend to be someone else just to, when they say mimic people, I do get that. But that person's either going to take a liking to you or not, and the ones you're going to win are the people that are going to take a liking to you. Don't try and pretend to be anyone else. Try and have a conversation irrelevant of your product if you can for as long as the time, and see if there's something there I'm useless at this, mate. I'm sorry for that. No,
it's interesting, because I've kind of clicked on personally when I've looked at these things that I struggle sometimes to speak to someone if I'm not able to anchor in almost emotionally, if I'm honest. So for me, it's important to get to know someone personally. I
agree with that.
And, I had a conversation at a garden party event or something before things became hazy. And someone was talking to me straight away, we do this, we do that, we do this. Yeah. And I found myself switching off a little bit, and I'm asking, where you're from? Yeah. Do you have kids, or watch football? And then that helps me
100%
buy into that person.
100%.
And it's not the same for everyone. No. Some people may 100%. Not want to know anything about you. They just want product cost and stuff.
And that's why they say a lot of the time that the business is done after a certain time at an event. It's because that's when everyone's more relaxed, and they may or may not have had a few drinks. And it's just, if someone comes up to you, sometimes you get the BDMs, and that event was Channel Champion. Shout that out, because I love that event. Absolutely spot on. But what was I saying?
In terms of the BDMs, in terms of pitching for business and things like that.
If you go to an event and they're like, right, if people allow their BDMs, not allow, but if people invite their BDMs to some of these events that we have in the industry, and they're like, right, you must get at least 10 names, then one, they're not going to have a good time because they're going to be thinking about that, and two, they're going to do more damage to your brand than they are good, because they're not building any rapport. They're too pressured. They're there like, hello, what do you do? What's your name? How much do you bill? Blah, blah, blah.
There's a...
Do you do that?
I won't name. No, I don't do that. I'll be rubbish at that. But we had. I was speaking to. I won't name anyone, but kind of from a carrier for the upcoming event in a couple of weeks. CNAs, is it?
Yeah, CNAs is probably the best.
They're going to potentially buy some tickets for account managers to work the room.
Yeah. To
do that. And to your point, I kind of agree. You're not going to establish those relationships. It's going to be, I work for...
Yeah, 100%.
So you're sort of networking in business is your network in terms of the relationship and being yourself and authentic,
100%.
I suppose.
Without my network, Fibrenews wouldn't have. We only launched in March. We would have had zero revenue if it wasn't for my network. Although we do stuff on LinkedIn, anything that's.
Let's talk about Fibrenews. What is Fibrenews?
Get onto that in a bit.
Something.
But I think it was my network that's allowed us to bring revenue in the early days, right? You know, like the brands that work with us, so we can help support them. Do you know what I mean? Like it's my network that has allowed us to do it. And then from now, we're growing now. People are aware of us because of LinkedIn and social media. I should pick up the phone more now, 100%. So I'm guilty of that. But, you know, it was my network that allowed Fibrenews to grow from the start, because we're going into competitive space and everything else. And,
So kind of going back then, so Union Street, smashed it, did really well, enjoyed it, grew your network.
Yeah.
What kind of prompted the next sort of, because you kind of went through a few different companies, did some consulting, because I came across you, I think you were either towards the end of or beginning your kind of consultancy.
I started my OG consultancy, yeah. So after I left Union Street, so I was there for 2 years and then got the itch again, of course. And then I wanted to be a consultant. So COVID hit and I couldn't be on the road. And I was like, nah, like, surely not. I can't be a man that's stuck.
I need to sleep in my van.
I need to sleep in my van.
You could have just done it on your drive though, couldn't you? It's not quite the same, is it? Yeah, I get it. I understand.
So I had to get out of there. And another mentor came into it. I was umming and ahhing about being a consultant. I had no idea how you do it.
Some people go away through life.
I've got more. I think it's strongly
key.
believe in mentors.
I think it's key.
It is 100% key. And I've still got them to this day. And some that I met 10 years ago and some that I've met a year ago. But I have a mentor, a chap that lived really close to me, is a chap called Simon Burkhardt. And at the time he was CEO of Kelly Communications. But of course he's been a consultant throughout his career. And I rang him up because he lived close to me in Tring, and I met him at Channel Live a couple of years back. And I was like, I'm thinking about going consultant. And he was like, 100% do it. And then spent an hour with me on the phone in COVID and telling me what I should and shouldn't do and all this. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I wrote out an email to Vincent like a right wussy and didn't bell him up. And I was like, I'm leaving. And he was pretty supportive, like, yeah, go for it, mate. Glad for you. And then started my consultancy. And then my first client was Prestige Telecom Group. And I went.
Did you have clients lined up before you joined the kind of?
No, I went for it bold. But luckily, I had an inkling because I went and met Prestige for about $1 billion, and I realised they're a mobile-only house and they weren't doing any other products and didn't know how to bill it themselves or anything else like that.
And you've been through that journey with business, you know.
I say that, I blagged it again. Like, did I know how to do that? Not really. I told Sean at Prestige I'd had 6 clients before, and I knew I absolutely did not. But you got to take it. You got to take that leap. And then it was my first day rate gig consulting. And I was buzzing and I grafted like anything. And it was supposed to initially be a 4-week contract, kept getting extended. And I ended up doing 2 years contracted work with Prestige. And then had small clients on the side. But
cash money.
Yeah, it was good. And it was kind of worked double hard. Again, I was away because they were down in Gosport Way. And I was obviously in Hertfordshire at the time. So again, same scenario. I was 3-4 nights away, grafting 14-hour days, and we done well there. We took, a zero billing platform up to a hefty amount.
Well, Prestige is a machine, isn't it now?
A sales machine, absolutely. Yeah, they're doing incredibly well.
Lots of noise in terms of, I think, opened a Brighton office, didn't they? Not that long ago.
Yeah, they're smashing it, and they've gone through. It's pretty worth talking about. We pretty won't mind. They've gone through a good transition now as well. Like any young call center, they went through the stage of absolute carnage with little structure. But hats off to Sean, who's the MD. Has always had a focused mind where he wants to always continually grow, build the business, put in structure and process. And now where they were from 5 years ago is a complete opposite. It's completely structured business, doing incredibly well. Turning over a hefty amount of multiple millions. It's a good, strong.
It's amazing that you see a lot of stories where there's businesses when they're growing, particularly in our channel, there reaches a point where they can go left or right through either a bad hire, they can go down, or the right hire, they can accelerate, or certain
it's money, right?
behaviours.
It's money. So there are a lot of young lads who have been in sales roles before, in a call centre or not, and they want to go and do it themselves, and hats off to them, they do it themselves, they start to do well, and then the cash comes in. And that can go 2 ways as a young person, and whatever it may be, fast cars, it could be all the naughty stuff as well, we won't go into it. But that's when it can kind of bring a lot of these rapid growing call center companies down. Because if you think, without being, call center has a certain stereotype. Like normally, you know, boozing is very much part of it. Partying is very much part of it. It's got to be, because you're in an absolute graft of a role where you're selling on the day, and then at the end of that month, you've hit your target or not hit your target, you reset. To have that mentality and that rejection every day, it's hard graft. So I don't blame people for blowing out at the time and going nuts, right? But once that grows, you can go two ways. And you have a look at some of the biggest resellers within our industry. They're still call center businesses, but they took the right direction and they put a structure in place and a process, and they've done some high level hires, and then they knuckled down. You know, they've had that period of blowing all their cash, might be buying a boat, might be buying a place in Marbella, might be taking the whole company away for 5 days straight on an absolute huge bender. They've done it and they've realized, right, we need to get to this next step. We need to get ourselves structured. And I use Prestige as that example, and they are doing that. And like I say, some of the biggest resellers in our industry have come from that arena of call center. And the reason why they're so big is they've nailed the sales. They just need to get that CS part and everything else involved. So if you can nail the sales within the business, you know, it's good.
Yeah, it's the key. Tangent there. No, you're right. It's worth talking about, because I think in our industry there's a lot of dangers and pitfalls out there, and then there's a lot of ways that I've seen partners and you've seen customers kind of grow. I think the desk is you know, I came through a desk environment.
Yeah. Everyone does, right?
Yeah.
I think it has to be a part of sales. It's harder now because we've got this cadence community, multi-touch marketing, and I get that, and it does work. I'm a believer of it. I've consulted and put those processes in place. That 12-step program where step one is a cold email with a video and all that, and it's great. And there's some great software that support it. But within any cadence or with any sales structure, there's a cold call, or there's 5 cold calls. If you're not doing that cold call part, you don't get to live that experience. I think you'll struggle later on. You know, it preps you for once you start presenting to board members and everything like that's hard graft, and you'll feel a few sessions. But if you go through that horrendous sales process in the early days of picking up the phone, and I'm saying it's horrendous, that after day 10 you get used to it, but you know, it sets you up for that time to progress. When you're a BDM, you're going out and you're presenting to CEOs, CFOs, MDs, boards, it makes it a lot easier, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's easier, to be honest, to be in an environment in a desk where, you know, everyone's performance is on boards. Yeah. You can't escape it.
You got it.
Everything's listened to, monitored. To come out of that, it gives you some resilience, I suppose.
You got it.
So, kind of obviously, COVID hit. How many kids have you got now, currently, at the time during COVID too?
I had my second in COVID, yeah.
Second in COVID, same with me.
Yeah.
Netflix, there was nothing on, was there? No new series coming out. So, obviously, the consultancy.
Yeah.
What's the difference between running your own business, which you do now with Fibrenews, and consultancy?
You got to be a lot cleaner. I hate it. My accountant hates me with a passion. I'm a little bit unorganised, to say the least. And you have to be structured. And now we do have a proper process, right? Like, there's big plans for Fibrenews. We're a publication. We do a lot of video. We do a lot of things differently. But there's software that we're trying to get off the ground in the background. And you know, it's a proper job. We took investment. We've got an office. We've got a studio. We have an accountant. Again, he hates me because you've got to be up to date on your receipts.
I just imagine you dropping a Sainsbury's bag of receipts on there and just trying to
They'd
sort
be happy
through
if
that.
I'd done that. I don't have any receipts. And my argument is, well, we won't get into that. But anyway. So yeah, and it is from structured, and you've got a process, and your outgoings are now incredibly high.
So what prompted Fibrenews? What did you in the channel, because you've been in the channel
correct
consistently.
Yeah.
What gap did you see the channel did not have from a comms sort of communication point of view?
You are good at this, aren't you? That's a really good question. So obviously I'm traditionally channel, and I consulted for however many years it was. I'd done Prestige, and then I decided to stop doing the exclusivity to Prestige on the consultancy side. I wanted more clients, and I'd moved down to Devon at that point. So, you know, driving 3 hours is a bit of a mish, although even one of my clients was next door to them in the end.
If you sleep in your van, it's not so bad, is it?
And I
last time
did.
I mentioned that.
Jumping back to that, right? So at Prestige, I had a Ford Ranger, and I converted the back into a bed with a couple of drawers. So again, I was down there 4 nights a week, and I was doing Premier Inns at the start, and I was like, nah, this ain't me. So like for a good full year through the winter and everything, I'd always sleep in the back of the truck, and I'd just go fishing, or I'd sleep on a lake, or I'd go down the beach and I'd sleep in the back of my truck. And a couple of times by the end of it, my canopy, the little bit that goes over the back and pickup, and it was insulated and everything, I made it mint. The canopy started locking from the inside, and I was like, nah. And luckily I was only asleep in the car park at this point of the office. I don't know what the staff thought. Well, I didn't, they all laughed. But I had to ring up one of the employees. Jamie was in my team, he was a legend. And I was like, it was like, I used to get up early those days, it was about 5:30. I was like, mate, I'm really sorry. Like, I've been up for the last half an hour, but I didn't want to wait up too early. Can you come and let me out of my truck? He's like, what? I was like, I'm locked in the back. So I had to wait an hour. I smoked then as well. So I just let down a little bit of the back window. I was just chuffing away, sitting there for an hour, and it was horrendous.
And the door opened, it was like...
Yeah, and eventually let me out, which was
stars
great.
in your eyes sort of appearance as you came out. You probably don't know stars in your eyes, show me age.
No, I do know that. There
that. We go.
And then, so go back to where we were.
So Fibrenews, what was not there that you saw as an opportunity?
I was always channel, and I was consulting, had lots of clients all on the channel side. And then I started seeing this altnet boom, and I was at Prestige at the time. We were selling connectivity, and I kept losing business to broadband companies that I couldn't sell on. Like I'd come up against, like, say, Hyperoptic, for example, even though they're not in the B2B space, but wherever it was. And I'd be in a call, and I'd be like, who are these? And I was like, I'd go on the WR3 checker or the OpenReach checker, and I'd be like, I can only get ADSL. How is he offering them a gig? I was like, I couldn't understand it. And I was like, they're a whole separate network altogether. Of course, throughout my whole career, I only ever knew of OpenReach. Of course, we had Virgin as well, but you never got to touch them unless it was on the B2B side. I just couldn't crack it. I was like, what is going on? And then it would happen again. It would be another brand. And I started looking into it. And I was like, where have all these other networks suddenly come from? I started looking into it more. Okay, there's a £5 billion pledge from the government to make the UK full fibre. And I was like, so that... how was there so many more networks? Realised, investment is very readily available. So now there's over 100 networks. And I was like, what? How has this been going on in the background? I've been so in my channel B2B bubble that all this is happening outside. I need to get involved because there's Resi, there's cash. Like there's a lot of cash knocking about. Left, right and centre, everyone's getting investment. At the time, City Fibre got announced that they're the first ones to get £1 billion. And I was like, what is happening here? So I need to get involved. And I started consulting in the Resi side. And again, complete blag, didn't really know what I was doing. Sorry to all my clients who were on the Resi side at the time, but we did make it happen.
Some refunds coming in.
Yeah. And so then I got involved. And then I realised on the actual publication side, I always wanted to do a podcast. I started turning at that point where I was at a point in my life I wanted to do something more. I wanted to slow down a little bit, being on the road 5 days a week. I had 2 kids, hadn't seen a lot of them growing up. I was like, I need to be stationed a bit. And what am I going to do? I knew I wanted to do a podcast. I like talking to people in the channel. That was where my passion was. And I was like, what can I do with a podcast? Let's put it into a publication. And then I wanted to develop some sort of software to bring all these altnets into one place. And I was like, right, I can do all of this in one hit. And then Fibrenews was born. And originally we were just focused on the software side. But then as we were pumping out some of the video content and the podcast and news content, it was really starting to take off. And I was like, this is actually mint. That originally the publication side was just there for SEO purposes. So I'd be at the top of Google for some of the search terms. But actually it was we were growing an audience. Like now we're up to 4,000.
Why do you think that was? Because like we're not going to, it can't be too controversial because we both like careers and stuff. But obviously there's long-standing vehicles within the channel.
There is.
That are long-standing.
Yeah.
What did you trigger within there, do you think, that caught on within the channel?
So I thought there's been a lot of publications around for a long time, and I love them all to bits because they are what I would have read and still read when it comes to the B2B voice side to this day. And there wasn't really anyone focusing on the connectivity side. There was one brand, but irrelevant all of that, I wanted to bring a modern touch. There wasn't really much video content, and when there was video content, it was very structured. Nothing was relaxed or an actual conversation.
Like, when you say wasn't relaxed, would that be
There was a script,
a screen with
yeah,
4 or 5 people.
Yeah, and everyone knows they got the questions pre-hand. You know, you've been on my podcast. I never give you any questions before. It's all off the cuff because that's how exactly like we're doing now. That's how the conversation rolls better. And I thought in my head that would be good. People would relate to that, and it did. As soon as the first early ones come out, which were horrendous, which I was doing on Teams, and you know the audio was getting stripped and I was extracting it, and it was all diabolical. And there was loads of episodes we didn't release. And then once we got the studio in January, you know everything's now pretty mint. It just started taking off. Our subscribers were growing, you know, on our podcast for a niche that we're in. You know, our top episode done 2,800 downloads, and I was like, what? Like mental. We're in a tiny industry, and then just like found the passion side for the actual publication. Software still going on, absolutely, but the publication was a revenue earner for us because we were growing such a large audience. Obviously, brands wanted to get their recognition out there, and we can do it in a different way. We're not just like writing an article, and I'm not putting down any other publication. Their events are mint, and I obviously have no events and probably never will because we're useless, amazingly unorganized. But you know, for the content side of it, we can do videos like we've done with you guys. Like we're going on the rooftop today. We're going out and we're actually going on the ground and going to a data center, and we get to see the infrastructure underground. And then we're going to an actual building where it connects. And Dave, who I interviewed yesterday, got to ask him all my random questions, like questions that
is it a key thing for you? So it's when you're doing your questions,
yeah,
similar to today, and obviously when I went down, that you're able to keep that authenticity. If, for example, we're doing some filming in a pre-connect later.
Yeah.
If I turn around to you and said, right, I want you to say this. I don't want you to ask that. Yeah. I don't want you to have an opinion on this. Yeah. I don't want you to video this. And there's a big list of things.
Couldn't do it. And I
say no.
I wouldn't say no. I would try. I'd always try because I never want to let anyone down. That's probably a good thing as much as a bad thing.
Well, that was the interesting thing. I mean, when we were talking before and when we sat down, I saw a very different version of you than the normal one that people will see. It was a very different, and it is a different environment, isn't it?
Yeah,
being that you've got power control, you know, differences there. But I think the authenticity is an interesting thing again because unscripted, authenticity, values, people like you, some who don't, you know, how you work in that way seems to have been a key driver through your career in terms of that authenticity, because there's a reason that people are, you know, big, rich, successful people don't kind of just wander around and go, I'm going to mentor you. Yeah, I like true. Your London accent. You're great.
It's true, mate. It is very true. I didn't think of that yet.
Whereas if I suppose you'd have tried to be what they thought you should be,
wouldn't have had a chance.
You're just one of the many, aren't you? There's no differentiation.
Hitting them on the head. That's a really good point. Yeah. Really good
so point. What's the future for Fibrenews then? Are we? Because you what? Not a year old yet.
Yeah. So we're well young. We're in our infancy. So I launched it in March, and like the whole focus for me with the first year from March till March now really is just we're still learning, get the publication side and the video content and everything else up to scratch. If you look at some of our early stuff and where we are now, it's only been, 8 months or wherever it is. You know, our content's more crisper, like our audio's better, the way we deliver our videos is becoming better, the way we're writing is becoming better, our imagery.
You're very self-critical, aren't you? And I don't mean that as in terms of that you slate yourself, but I imagine when you do something, you're constantly, how can we improve it? How can we? That must be a constant process with you.
Like any business, and it's incredibly painful. Even now, you look back at some of the content that we've done, and even like our content now is a million miles off. But you have to start, man. And I know that. I've always been believe that. And if you don't start, it's not going to happen. So I'm happy. I know like people will be looking at some of the stuff I write, or be looking at some of the way our website's laid out, or how we edited that piece of content, and I know they'll be like, that's a bit pants, that's a bit amateur, but then of course it is. It's young and we're all learning, you know, but I know within a year's time, they're going to be like, this stuff is mint, and as more revenue comes in, we can get better equipment. You know, I haven't got these amazing mics in my podcast. I do have this arm though. I do have this arm.
I went in your office. You built
our studio,
your
smashed
podcast
out
from scratch. So I'm assuming you leveraged some of your furniture sort of bodging up experience back in the day.
I'm a much more hands-on person than I am. Like if I could do a career irrelevant of cash, then I'd 100% be doing so with my hands, whether I was being a farmer or whatever.
You'd be in the middle of a forest.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Just Fettling.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, our podcast studio. So the investment hit for me in late December, and I had our first podcast guest coming in like the 5th of January, and I was like, I haven't even got a studio, and I've committed to this. It was carnage. So
fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it. Yeah, done it a lot. And so I was like, oh my God, it was like the 22nd or something like that. And I was like, it's coming up to Christmas, hammering around, ringing loads of agencies, blah, 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 trying to find, and obviously it's in Exeter, so it's a city centre, had to be a city centre so people could come get the train down and all that jazz. And then, yeah, it hit. And then by the time January 5th, so I managed to, over the Christmas period, square away an office with this chap who's a legend. I was like, look, get me in. He's like, I can do it. Don't worry about it. Sorted it out. So I picked up the keys on like December 28th and then just grafted like 14-hour days and smashed out the studio. So he obviously had to redo all the ceiling, put all sound panels around the whole thing. This is just me and my lads. And my office comes with a little warehouse, luckily. And I've got loads of woodworking tools anyway.
Does that store back to 16, 17, out and about, grafting? Do you have that sort of inner sort of fire?
I've always been able to do forever. It's getting harder now. As soon as you turn 30, it gets harder. I've always been able to do.
My heart absolutely bleeds for you in that respect. It must be terrible.
Yeah, so that's market trading days, like getting up at 3, 4 in the morning, doing 14, 16-hour days. Same as my family, all the men the same family and the women. Long 18-hour days, breading us, and never had any drama with that. But today's going to be a crazy day, right? Like we're filming all day. We're here at 9 in the morning. We'll probably finish up in Manchester, 5, 6 o'clock. And then I've got to drive down to London, probably get there 10, 11 o'clock, get me head down in the van for Connected Britain tomorrow, where I've got to do 14 interviews throughout the whole day. And then there's an event in the evening. And then probably will treat myself to a hotel at that point. So I'm only sleeping in the van, obviously, because it's late. By the time I get
you don't want to sleep in a van in the centre of London.
I don't mind it. I used to do it all the time. So obviously the market train up where I've done was always central London.
No, it's interesting because I think there's lots of things to kind of touch on, because I'm a big believer in the harder you work, the luckier you get, and the harder
completely agree.
you work, it's important, because I kind of always say there's an imaginary competitor. For example, my one is there's an imaginary competitor. If I log on Sunday night, are they doing that? No, they're probably watching Countryfile, so I'm ahead of them a little bit.
Yeah.
Am I doing these things? Am I differentiating? And I think it's interesting, your journey, because you have that core ethic of work, you have the entrepreneurial side, but then there's a strong focus on personalities and relationships, which has kind of driven you to the point of Fibrenews, which is probably the most relationship based sort of chunk you do. You're dealing with clients, customers, businesses. You've got to understand things. You've got to pick up a phone to someone and find out what's going on over there.
And it's the willingness to learn. So,
how do you stay authentic when you've got people paying you?
How do you stay authentic when you've got people paying you? The reason they're paying you in the first place is because you're authentic. So there's no point changing once you've committed and they've got a sponsorship with you.
Correct. No, I'd agree. I think if you've got more kahunas than me, but keeping that core, keeping the values and the journey is the key thing, isn't it? And not sacrificing things. Going back to the kind of a reseller business that's growing, sacrificing your core principles, which may be customer, this, and then as you grow, they might change to profit. That's when you can get a few challenges, I suppose, that I've seen. What do you see as the biggest opportunities in the sort of sector? Because there's like you said, there's 100 alt nets. There's some mergers, consolidations. You've got different sort of dynamics, relationships, partnerships. I think there was one announced yesterday. What do you see over the next couple of years in terms of the market?
So let's talk about the Resi side. So on the Resi side, of course, they do say there's 100 altnets out there, but some of those are just purely connection voucher based, who are doing 100 homes in a village and
BDUK.
Stuff like that. Yeah. So there's kind of two flavors to the BDUK. You've got those connection vouchers, small villages, an ISP. As long as they've got a bit of network, they can get a fund per home. And then you've got the side where you go through the procurement and then you get a lump of cash committed to you by the government to deliver multiple thousands.
Outside in and
Absolutely, in the rural locations. But then obviously you've got your big beefy alt nets that are taking a huge amount of investment and are constantly under pressure to pass properties and to connect properties and everything else. And those you break down are a lot smaller. There's probably not more than 12 that are in the highlight, skylight. What is that phrase? Are in the focused arena. And opportunity in that regard is for only the consumer focused sellers. So if you're like Utility Warehouse is a really good example. So they're a layer 3 only reseller. For them, the opportunity is huge because they can go to new networks instead of just selling on OpenReach, and they may be able to negotiate much better pricing when it comes to a full fiber offering than you can with OpenReach. The opportunity for them is great. Shell Broadband the same. They went the wrong way and they obviously got sold. Cuckoo was another good one. Again, they got bought as well. But for the consumer brands, they've now got more choice than ever. The difficult part is when your layer 2 is interconnecting to all of these, but the technologies and middlemans out there that make that easier. But the opportunity is great. For the consumer, the opportunity is massive. It's never been a better time to buy broadband. If an altnet is in your area, then you're going to get a gig broadband for probably 30 quid and 6 months free. When you're never going to get broadband that cheap again. So if you're a consumer, now is the time to buy. You're never ever
40-year payback.
Bang on, right? By 2030 or whatever it is, and we're 99% covered by FTTP, then you're never going to get that price again. So now is the right time for a consumer to buy 100%. The opportunity for the B2B sector, I think, is monumental. I think the margin is making a return in the connectivity. We've got new brands coming into the market, making all the right noise, being competitive again, and bringing that personal touch back into the channel. We spoke about it on our podcast. What you guys doing is exactly right. It's exciting for partners. It's very hard. There's many resellers out there, all shapes and sizes now, the MSP style, the traditional voice guys. You've got anyone trying to come into the B2B space because they can see the opportunity. What it lacks when it comes to some of these larger partners is if you're not doing any major numbers in the early days, you're not going to get that added support. You're not going to get that support on how do I actually market that? Or can I have access to that address data to run a campaign? How have your other partners done this? Can you help me on that price? I need to be able to beat this. It's much harder for those guys who are early on to come on, or even some of the large ones. They don't get that personal touch anymore. And hats off to you guys, you are doing that. So I think the opportunity from a B2B side is the more networks that are out there, and if a supplier can interconnect with multiple of those, you're always going to get a good on net price, so that margin is coming back and you're getting bigger pipes for less money. You can now lead a campaign with connectivity you never did before. You'd never get a call center dialing out, do you want to get upgrading your broadband and save you £4? It's never going to happen. You're going to be pushing VoIP, something a bit sexier. You're going to be talking about the big switch off because it's a big open for them. But
what's
now
that?
But now you can push connectivity. I've done it myself. So I've done a campaign when I was consulting for a company. They had some incentives from a network, so they needed to hit certain numbers, and we went out of a connectivity first campaign, and we done that whole fluffy sales cadence process. We rented some very expensive software. There are cheap ones out there now, but at the time they were the only one. We done that process of the first email that went out was a little video. We sent them something physical in the post. It was a voucher saying they had £500 off their install, and it really worked. We focused on where this network was laying fiber, so we knew we could get a product at dirt cheap. We could tell these businesses it was unlikely if they already had a lease line, it was going to be more expensive because this network had recently built there, and it really worked. We were opening doors. So I think now the opportunity on the B2B side has never been better. The more networks there are, the more competitive the price, the bigger the pipes, the better the portals, the better the relationships, the better the marketing support. Go get it. Connectivity is something you should be talking about your customers. Plus, it's all in the press, right? If you want to use this, if I'm dialing out on a campaign, do you know the government's pledged £5 billion to help us get full fibre everywhere? Do you know, Mr. Customer, that, we can help you with that? There's no installation. It's been talked about in the press. Use it in your armory. Of course, you've still got that USP to talk about the voice side and the switch off, but use the £5 billion pledge as well. It will work. Anytime the government starts talking about saying in your industry, if you're not using it to your advantage, you're off your nut. So the opportunities be.
Yeah, you've got to leverage the outside to make a
100%. You're not doing anything wrong. I'm not saying you should lie or anything like that. The facts are out there. So when that person does maybe Google whilst you're on the phone to them, or you send that cold email with a link, they're going on the government website. We are going through, and we're never going to go through this again ever, are we? We're never going to upgrade the infrastructure. This fibre should last us. We're putting in XGS PON 10 or whatever it is, that might be, I don't know how it works. I'm not very technical, but this is going to last us long. We're never going to go through this.
It's hard to get faster than the speed of light.
Bang on, like the stuff you can throw down a glass fibre, and we're going to be filming a piece of fibre later, which is going to
I look forward to that. No, I think it's interesting. I think working with your supplier, I think the opportunity, there's a lot more wholesalers, if you like, out there. Yeah. The competition's great, and I think resellers are able to access support, and I think there's resellers out there that have maybe been with a wholesaler for a long time who don't feel the love that they maybe did in the early days.
What you don't want to do is, we're in a different era, right? So we get too used as a reseller to buy all of our products from one supplier. We're very used to going out and buying our voice directly from a supplier. And I won't name any names because I won't do any plugs here. There's too many of them. But we're very used to going to that voice supplier directly. What we're not used to doing is going with a network direct that interconnects with other companies. And we need to do that more. And sometimes you think it's a bit off-putting, like, do I need a big bond to put down, and do I need to hit targets? No, you don't. Speak to you guys about it. You are prime that example. You are a network in your own right, but you interconnect and you have a national offering. You're going to be more competitive when it comes to a brand that does your VoIP, does your mobile, does your connectivity, does your FTTP, does your RR3. You're going to be more competitive on the price, and you're going to have that more personal touch. You're solely focused on connectivity, right? Whereas someone else who's got 18 products in their armory with 2,000 employees and an account manager for this, and that, connectivity. You're going to do them a better service.
Going to a butcher for your meat, going to fruit and veg.
Yeah, I'm all about that as well in my life. Absolutely.
On the market stall.
Absolutely. And look, the way billing is nowadays and how cheap it is and all the platforms out there, it's not hard to go directly to supply. Connectivity is the easiest thing to bill in the world. You hear that with a lot of resellers are a bit nervous. Like, comes in at one price, it goes out at one price. Don't be nervous. Go and speak to people direct like you guys.
So we're kind of coming to the end. So I like to ask a few questions. Dinner. Obviously. 3 guests, dead or alive. You're not killing them, by the way. Who would you invite?
Roger that. Ray Mears.
Ray Mears
is an absolute legend.
He can stay in your van, yeah.
Yeah. Ray Mears is an absolute champion. Then I'll probably go... I'll tell you what I do really like as well is Charles Dowding. Charles Dowding's a really good gardener on YouTube. If anyone watches him for the other, he's a legend as well. And then I'll probably have to get some sort of... what's his name? Foxy from SAS. He Who Dares. He's a good chap.
I went for a speech for him. So you've got SAS, you've got Ray Mears, and you've got so I think the outdoors element is well suited in that meal.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Probably eating pheasant and a hog or something like that. Yeah.
Or Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, who's an absolute legend as well. We're going off pace now. We're gone.
I like Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall. And then last question. Yeah. If you were talking to a young Jonny Rae,
oh God, yeah,
on the market, what 3 things?
What would I tell him? I'd say failing early is you done the right thing. Fail as much as you can. Do not be afraid of failure. You have to fail. Everyone fails, and you've got to get used to failing, which I've done God knows how many times. Have the willingness to learn is the most important thing. Like exactly the same as Fibrenews. Like suddenly we've got to become videographers. Suddenly we've got to know how to edit content. Suddenly we've got to become content writers and website builders, and like never done anything before like that. And then suddenly in January we'll be able to learn all that. Willingness to learn is absolutely key. Like and the first thing is not the blag, but go for it. Like don't be afraid. I suppose that comes as part of the failing, but get yourself into a situation. You've got the willingness to learn. Work hard and you can learn it. Exactly the same when I first went consultancy. Exactly the same when we done Fibrenews. Exactly the same when I went to Union Street. Exactly the same when I went to Market Blizzard. So thank you, Jonny. As we conclude our first episode, I think the really interesting things I would take away from time with Jonny, there's a lot more to him than I realised before. So I think the mentoring, the career journey, I think the views on the industry, I think it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of value a lot of us can take from it. So I really appreciate Jonny taking the time, and hopefully, I'm sure he won't mind anyone reaching out, because I think from a career journey, it's quite a unique one. And as a first guest, I don't think we could have done any better. So thank you very much for Jonny Rae and Fibrenews. As I'm an incredibly desperate and insecure man, the more likes we can get, the better, because I will feel like I am
actually being worthwhile with an endeavor. So you may see our podcasts out there. If you can like and comment, that would be great. Not just from an ego point of view, it'll also help us with content. There's lots more guests lined up across lots of different sectors, but please engage with us. Thanks for watching or listening, whether you've been doing the washing up, driving, in the bath, although you probably don't want my voice in the bath. It's appreciated, and it means a lot to us all. So thank you.